Hello. I want to talk about Once Upon a Time in the West, one of the most stunning westerns ever made. It's directed by Sergio Leone. It was released in 1968. I saw it for the first time in the cinema, I think in 2008 for its 40th anniversary. It was restored then, and only on DVD, and I've just bought it on 4K Blu-ray, rewatched it. It looks fantastic, and I wanted to talk about it. Sergio Leone directed just 7 films. His first film, The Colossus of Rhodes, is nondescript, so only for purists and completists I would watch that. But his other 6 I highly recommend. With his second feature film, A Fistful of Dollars, he hit his stride and never let up. And the 6 films he made after Colossus of Rhodes are so good that I think Sergio Leone is in my top 10 favourite directors of all time. And A Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, then Good, the Bad and the Ugly, then Once Upon a Time in the West, then he made A Fistful of Dynamite, and then Once Upon a Time in America. All those 6 you should watch. They're fantastic, and he has a real eye, Sergio Leone, real eye for mise en scène or composition, camera movement. But not just that, he's great with actors, and he's great with creating atmosphere. The first 2 scenes of Once Upon a Time in the West are sort of filled with ominous violence and then sudden bursts of violence. You feel the ominous. You feel ominous because the violence is on the horizon. You're waiting and waiting, and then there's a sudden explosion of it. It's still shocking, even though you know it's coming. And not only that, he has this ability with using the camera to do close-ups on his actors among an epic canvas. So you've got these beautiful, widescreen landscapes. Plus, you've got somehow he's managed to make the film feel epic and intimate by all these wonderful close-ups of his actors who have interesting faces and are, talented thespians. Sergio Leone is a real masterclass filmmaker, sort of a director for those who want to direct, I think they can learn a lot from him. Obviously, he's surrounded by great technicians and actors. In particular, obviously, one of his most famous collaborators is the music composer Ennio Morricone, and his score here is elegiac. I think the score sort of swells the emotions mysteriously, and I think perhaps Ennio Morricone's score is so effective in this film because the music complements proceedings perfectly. What came before, what is going on as you're watching, and what you're anticipating or foreboding. Music and what visuals are married together sort of harmoniously and brilliantly. And not only that, there's not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, but there are 3, sorry. There are 3 famous directors involved in writing the story for Once Upon a Time in the West. Firstly, obviously, Sergio Leone. Then you've got Dario Argento and Bernardo Bertolucci. They collaborated with Sergio Leone on the story. There are 2 plots intertwined in the film. Greed and revenge. And there's plenty of tension and intrigue to keep us gripped while the plot is revealed slowly. Once Upon a Time in the West is not as action-packed as his earlier 3 westerns, his famous spaghetti westerns. But instead, I would compare Once Upon a Time in the West to the similarly monikered Once Upon a Time in America. Sergio Leone, with these 2 films, he has an unsentimental look at humanity. And interestingly, in this film, I think perhaps he has one of his most formidable villains, played by Henry Fonda. At one point, Henry Fonda's character Frank likens being a business tycoon to holding a gun. And there is a charge exchange between one of the villains of the film, a railway tycoon, and Henry Fonda's Frank, who is a sort of hired gun. And you wonder who will come out on top between the two. There is a sort of merciless nihilism in this film, and it reminds actually of No Country for Old Men, the novel by Cormac McCarthy, and actually one of the few movie adaptations which are superior to the source novel. I recommend checking out the film No Country for Old Men, a sort of modern western that is merciless, and the mercilessness of Henry Fonda's Frank. He is a scary psychopath in this film. I think because he has options to achieve his goals that do not involve killing, yet he chooses to kill. And there is so much death in this film, or it feels like so. There's a lot of threat of death. Life is on a knife edge in Once Upon a Time in the West. This is not a fairy tale kind of western. This is it's not brutal because it's or the brutality is there, but it's kind of masked by the performances and the camera work and the visuals. I mean, the acting is superb. The four leads mesmerise: Claudia Cardinale, Charles Bronson, Jason Robards, and of course Henry Fonda. And plus the supporting cast are admirable too. And there's so many remarkable shots in Once Upon a Time in the West. You could do an entire video just on the visuals between the director and his cinematographer, and obviously his creative teams as well involved. Firstly you've got the introduction to the four main leads as each character as each of the four leads are revealed. They're revealed in a sort of striking way. And then there's another shot where the train pulls away in the opening, revealing the target of three assassins. These three assassins have been waiting for this target and they've given up, but in fact the target has turned the tables on them and instead ambushing the assassins. It's a fantastic shot. And there's another early shot in the film which is remarkable. It's where the camera starts inside the train station and then moves up above it and to reveal a bustling town behind. It's wonderful, just wonderful. There's a shot stunning shot. It reminds me of other stunning shots, for example, Lawrence of Arabia, where the cast come over a sand dune and reveal a ship. Also reminds me, it's up there with these great shots with the Coen brothers when they did the remake of their version anyway of True Grit, where the train pulls back and reveals a town behind it. I mean, that is a wonderful sort of composition. And if you haven't seen both versions of True Grit, actually check them out. The first version is starring John Wayne, and the second version stars Jeff Bridges. And there's countless other shots that I love in the film, but another one I remember is like entering. Where the audience enters a way station, a claustrophobic way station. Really great production design, really interesting way station. Not only have you got it's like a huge room, but it's claustrophobic at the same time because of this the not much natural light is coming in, and you've got one part is the bar, one part is like where characters are cleaning themselves, another part is where the horses are stabled, and it reminded me of the cantina weirdly in Star Wars. So Sergio Leone, I'm a big fan, as you can tell. And if after watching Once Upon a Time in the West, which I hope you do, I highly recommend watching Once Upon a Time in the West, and you want to check out some other films, I recommend the following. Firstly, I go with A Fistful of Dynamite, Sergio Leone's best film, and the only film in Leone's back catalogue better than Once Upon a Time in the West, in my opinion, is A Fistful of Dynamite. Not many people talk about it, but it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's brutal, but just utterly compelling. And then also, I recommend to put on your list the greatest Western of all time, according to me, is called Heaven's Gate, a true epic. Again, unsentimental, merciless, a very interesting look at the Wild West. That's called Heaven's Gate. Then you've got Robert Altman's striking McCabe and Mrs. Miller. That stars Warren Beatty and Julie Christie. That's very, very good. McCabe and Mrs. Miller. And there's also a TV show actually I'd put on your list, a recent one called The English, starring Emily Blunt and Chaska Spencer, and that has an unusual mix of the poetic and the merciless. And another recommendation, as my favourite film of 2021 was a Western, and that was called The Harder They Fall. So put that one on your list as well. If you enjoyed my review, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and like this video.